Hi everyone, Frank DeMore here with the latest report connecting Bible prophecy and current events. This is July the 10th, 2013. And if you just found my YouTube channel, you've entered in the End Times Research Ministry. And it's at this ministry where you can get a free copy of my book called The Last Chronicles of Planet Earth, as you see here. And once you're at my website that you'll see here, all you do is scroll down to the green area here and look for the latest report that I put up. And I'm trying to do this daily. I have been doing it for some time. And all you would have to do is click on the link and you'll see a little flash, and you don't have to do anything else, just scroll down. Alright, so let's scroll down. Today is the 10th, and this is the information that I've put up. And once you get to my website, you'll see the back, the front and the back cover of my book. Just click the link and that book will come up immediately, and it is the newest edition of July 9th, 2013. So let's get right into some connections between Bible prophecy and current events. Now, if you've been with me for some time, you know that these signs are going to be very familiar to you. But if you haven't been to my site and you don't know much about Bible prophecy, these are the things that you should know. Now, keep in mind, it's very important to understand this, that what I'm showing you is just a microcosm of all the signs that Christ told us to look for. Now, we know from Matthew chapter 24, and in that chapter, as well as Luke chapter 21 and Mark chapter 13, the Lord gave us all the signs that we would be looking at all at the same time. All of these signs would be taking place at the same time. And there's no other generation who's seen all of the events that the Lord told us to look for in one single time, generation, than ours. We're seeing these things take place. Now, there are some prophecies that haven't been fulfilled, and I'll cover very quickly about the Psalm 83 and the Ezekiel war that haven't been fulfilled yet, and they're coming up. And we see those events coming up by the news. But so our generation is the generation, we know that from Matthew 24, that will see the return of the Lord Jesus Christ. He said in Matthew chapter 24, when you shall see all these things, know that it is near, even at the door. So no other generation can make claim to this except for ours. Now, part of what we're looking for, the birth pangs, as we see in Mark 13:8, we are seeing the intensity of the heat from the sun, droughts, lack of water, famines, and it's taking effect on our food. So let me connect the dots. In Revelation 17, verse 16, or chapter 7, verse 16, it says, never again will they hunger. So obviously, people on earth are going to be hungering. Now keep in mind, if you're new to prophecy, Revelation chapter 7, verse 16, will reach its max concerning these prophecies here during the tribulation period. But we're advancing to this point through those birth pangs that I just talked about in Mark 13:8. So we know that the people are going to be hungry. And again, never again will they thirst. So we know that something's going to happen with the sun. We see it right here. And it's going to cause this intense heat, as you can see here, the scorching heat, and obviously the effects are going to be droughts, famine, and lack of water. And of course, hunger and starvation. Now in Revelation 16:8, it says the fourth angel poured out his bowl on the sun. So again, we see another prophecy further down into the book of Revelation pointing to signs in the sun. And the sun was given power to scorch people with fire. And so we've been seeing this taking place. I report every single year. You're seeing the temperatures, record-breaking temperatures, droughts on many places around the world. Now, let's connect the dots. In Revelation 6:6, the Lord showed us, and I heard a voice in the middle of the four beasts say, a measure of wheat for a penny, and 3 measures of barley for a penny. So we know that through this scripture, and again, it's going to reach its max during the tribulation. There's going to be major problems with food crisis. And we know that the Lord shows us that that this rider on the horse is going to have the balances, and this is starvation and death that will be taking place during the tribulation period. And again, we're in the birth pangs of it. So in many, many places, and you'll see this loaded in my book, I cite all the places that I can find for you, made it very easy for you. Signs that the wheat prices and the grain prices and the food prices are going through the roof. And I've been telling you that every year, watch it, they're going to keep going up, and that's exactly what is happening. Now here's another one of those signs that will show you that what the Lord is pointing to is actually coming to pass, or at least we're on that way to see it completely come to fruition. The headline, Russian grain harvest seen below government target after drought. That should tell you all in itself. Now let me go right over to the article, and you see it here. Here's the article, and I'm going to highlight it for you. And I'm just going to read a little bit. Now again, you can get to my site. You'll have the link there. So be able to read it pretty easy, the whole link if you want to. But this is talking about, obviously, the signs that the Lord pointed to. You see drought. It says the grain crop in Russia projected to be among this year's 5 biggest wheat exporters. Russia is one of the 5 big nations exporting wheat. And I've been telling you about Russia. How their products will be going down and the prices will be going up. And essentially what this article is going to show you is exactly what I've been saying. I take no credit for it because all I'm doing is reading what Jesus told us to look for. I believe what he says, and I've been looking for what he told us to look for, and I'm just reporting the fruition of what Christ told us. So it goes on to say the 5 biggest wheat exporter is set to fall below, here we go again, below the government goal after drought plants in some regions, according to the State Weather Agency. Let me highlight this again for you. It says the harvest may reach 90 million to 94 million metric tons in 2013-14 season begun on July 1st. All right, so we know exactly when their seasons began. It says the head of the Federal Agency on the Hydrometeorology and the Environmental Monitoring said today at a government meeting near Moscow. That compares with the Agriculture Minister 95 million ton target. So they're well below that target. And what they're focusing on is exactly the same thing that the Lord mentions in Revelation 6:6. We're going to see more about this as the summer continues here in 2013 and obviously in 2014. If you've been following what the weather experts are telling us, that these temperatures are going to keep going up, and they have been going up. And of course they're in agreement with what the Lord Jesus told us. So let's go back to my site here for a second. We'll pick up on the next story. And it has also to do with the intense heat. So let's go to it. It says climate change, heat intensifies drought in the USA. Now this is another one of the July 10th articles. And it says in this browning patch of land in central Texas, it says C.J. Terre could be fined for using fresh water to keep her decades-old oak trees alive, so she relies on soapy water left over from washing clothes. I've never seen it like this before. And I've been showing you many, many reports where people around the world are saying the exact same thing that this woman who lives in Texas is saying. They haven't seen these conditions before. And that's the truth, because each year the conditions get worse and more people are reporting about it, so it's easier to bring attention to it, as I've been showing you. So it says Tyre's grandmother, who has lived in her modest lakeside beach ranch for 20 years. Her community has been under emergency water restrictions since January 2012, when it became the first to run dry during Texas' ongoing 3-year drought. So they're still in dire straits in Texas. And in the lower section, as you're going to see when I go back to my site, that there's a real bad situation, crisis, and a drought situation in many of the states in the United States. It stays afloat with the 6 daily truckloads of water. 30 miles southeast near Austin, Pete Clark had to close one restaurant along Lake Travis, and the other lost 75% of its business since 2011. Water levels are so low that the Carol's and Charlie's, once a popular floating Tex-Mex water hole, is no longer even lakeside. Now, I know I just went through, I took a trip and I went past in around the area of Santa Barbara, California, where Lake Cachuma, where Santa Barbara gets their water from. And also there's a Lake Nacimiento, which is up in the central area of California. And they are at some of the lowest levels they have ever been. So what's going on in Texas, we're seeing water problems and rationing in many different parts, not just Texas, but California and some of these other states, Arizona and Nevada. The water situation is becoming dire, and I know that the area that I live in here, they're expecting a 14% increase in the price of we are currently paying for water. So we're definitely in the birth pangs of the last days birth pangs that Christ showed us about the intensity of the heat and the problems with the food supply. Now, as I said, I wanted to bring you the drought. You'll see this is July 2nd, so it's the latest report about the droughts. Now, when you take a look here, you'll see that this area here, it says D2 drought severe, and there's a lot of that going on right here. Extreme. Take a look at this. I mean, it is a large portion of the United States, and this portion in the United States produces, or at least is supposed to produce, especially in California, food, crops that are being destroyed or causing a lot of problems because the farmers have to use up a lot more of the water. So let's go back. All right, so what I'm going to be pointing out right now is there's 2 wars, as I mentioned earlier in this video, 2 wars that haven't been fulfilled yet. One of them is Psalm 83, and the other one I'm going to talk about right now, Ezekiel chapter 38. Now, in Ezekiel chapter 38, these are the wars, or this is the war that will take place after the Psalm 83 war. Now, Russia is going to lead this war. Right? Now, none of these nations here will see that are going to play a role, obviously, in the Psalm 83 war. These are the nations that border Israel. These do not. All right? So, just to let you know that Russia is going to be playing a major role. They're going to be leading the attack in the Ezekiel chapter 38 war, of which Israel is not going to win that war. And let me explain. When all of these nations, and predominantly Muslim nations, attack Israel, Israel is going to be faced with millions and millions of Muslims coming down to wipe out Israel. Now, Israel won't fight that war, but they will win. And the reason why I'm saying this is because when you read chapter 38 of Ezekiel, you'll see that this is the war that God set a date for, and he actually steps in, and he is the one who defeats all of these nations who come against Israel. And so when I said Israel will not win the war, what I was saying, or what I was pointing to, is Israel won't even fight the war. God is going to fight the war for Israel. So at the end of the day, Israel actually wins only because God comes to their rescue. You can see the complete details of this in Ezekiel chapter 38 and 39. This is the war that hasn't happened yet. And of course, this war will take place, as we see in the scriptures, when Israel feels safe safe enough to where we see in Ezekiel, you'll see this in Ezekiel chapter 38 and 39, that one of the major criterias that we know that are going to have to happen before the Russians attack is Israel will have no bars, no gates, or no walls. In other words, everything will be coming down because they're going to feel safe enough. And of course, that is not going to happen until the Psalm 83 war, which all of these nations are going to try first to try to take out Israel, and then later, when these nations can't do it, the rest of these nations are going to try to do what they couldn't. So now that you know that I'm pointing to Russia, let me show you the connection here. As we see these flags, this is the Russian flag, obviously the Israeli flag. Here's the headline: Israel reportedly mulling deal that would see the Russian troops on Golan. All right, so here we are at the website. Israel reportedly mulling deal that would see the Russian troops on the Golan. And let me just scroll down a little bit. I'm just going to give you a little bit of information to connect the dots for you. It says Israel may allow the Russian soldiers to join the United Nations peacekeeping forces on the Golan Heights, and in return, Moscow will halt the transfer of the advanced anti-aircraft missiles to Syria. The London-based Arabic language daily Asquat al-Swat reported Wednesday. So, why am I giving you all so much information about the Russians in the Ezekiel war? Well, obviously, when the attack takes place, and you'll see that Syria is involved here. So let me go back to my site for a second. Obviously, if the Lord showed us that Syria is going to be involved in this war, and Russia is going to be involved in this war, and right now, Syria and Russia are major allies. They are the best of friends, and Russia has been arming Syria. As a matter of fact, in my book, you will see the proof that the Russians have a military base, a seaport in Damascus. All right, so we know that their presence is there. So when the Psalm 83 war breaks out, if the Russians are there and they're trapped, and Israel happens to kill some of these soldiers, we could see why Russia would really get ticked off. Now, Russia and Israel are cordial, but it's always been noted that Russia is really not friends with Israel. And we know that for sure because Ezekiel, what we see in the prophecy of Ezekiel, it shows us that they're enemies of Israel. So I'm saying that it is possible that the Russians who go into this area, and keep in mind that Bashar al-Assad from Syria said that he was going to take the Golan Heights by force or by peace. So we know that the rhetoric that are coming out of Syria, and of course what's happening in Syria right now, by the end of the day, Syria and Egypt, and of course you know what's going on in Egypt right now, Egyptians fighting against the Egyptians, all of the events that are taking place, we see that are leading down to the fulfillment of both of these prophecies. But I wanted to show you specifically why this Russian troops may go into Golan may be important, as you see the connection from the Russians and the Syrians just in the news today. And that is very significant. Now, when we're talking about Syria, there is the prophecy about Damascus that hasn't been fulfilled, and of course the prophecy about Syria, as you'll see in Joel chapter 49, verses 23 to 27. Now these prophecies talk about how Damascus is going to be left in a ruinous heap, as you'll see right here. And also in Jeremiah chapter 49, you'll see again talked about Damascus being is waxed feeble, and she's going to be set on fire. You'll see it right here. And so we know that there's going to be massive problems in Syria, and that is in the works right now. We've seen the civil war, and so let me bring you some of the latest news about Syria and what's happening.
And welcome once again to Flashpoints. I'm Bob Orr, joined by Juan Zarate, our national security analyst. Juan, good to see you.
Bob, great to see you.
So Syria has been a regular topic for us. Just bring us up to date. Where are we now?
Well, what we're seeing from reporting by Margaret Brennan is that General Idris, the head of the Free Syrian Army, the guy that the U.S. likes and wants to support, has sent a letter to the UN Security Council basically arguing that the Assad regime is engaged in ethnic cleansing, that this is starting to look like genocide, and that the UN has to ensure that this does not become another Rwanda. What's interesting here, Bob, is that he is trying to make the case the regime, with its use of chemical weapons, with what it's doing to massacre civilians, is actually engaged in war crimes and international delicts that the international community has to address. And so he's trying to build the building blocks for broader international support and coalition and support for their cause. What's interesting as well, Bob, is this comes at a time when Samantha Power, the nominee to be our next ambassador to the UN, President Obama announced that a couple of weeks ago, is the grand proponent for humanitarian-driven intervention. She wrote the famous book, A Problem from Hell, which talks about the problems we've had in the past with precisely the kinds of cases like Rwanda, where there are humanitarian disasters happening and the U.S. has not intervened. And so it's an interesting argument made by the Syrians at a time when you have a potential U.S. representative in New York at the UN whose very academic work and profile has been built on the notion of intervention for humanitarian reasons.
So how much weight does a letter like that have? How much credibility is attached to that, and does it really swing the argument? Like, for example, would that have any influence on the Russians?
I don't think it's going to influence the Russians at all. It's an attempt to put the Russians a bit in a box. It's an attempt to move the diplomatic chess pieces on the board a bit. But I don't think it has great...
Now let me stop it there for a second, because I was talking about the Russian-Syrian connection, and you see that they're talking about this connection, and it is a very, very important connection to prophecy.
Wait, the other problem is you have such a milieu of problems on the ground. You have on the Free Syrian Army side the problem that their cause is now aligned with the Al-Qaeda types, the Al-Nusra Front and other groups that are aligned with radical, violent, extremist causes. And so that complicates the on-the-ground dimensions of this. And the Russians have said, look, some of the humanitarian issues and atrocities are coming from these other guys as well. So nobody's hands are clean in this fight. And I think the problem is the longer this goes, the muddier and murkier it gets on the ground, and it's hard to make clear moral arguments.
As this has gone on, we've seen the momentum kind of swing back and forth. Most recently, it looked like Assad had kind of regained some power, and he looked a little bit more entrenched. Has that changed? Where are we now on that?
I don't think so. What the latest reporting is that the Assad forces, and largely the Hezbollah-driven forces, were setting up to attack Aleppo, setting up to go after one of the major rebel strongholds, the commercial center for Syria. That hasn't happened yet.
Now I'm going to stop it again. Now take a look at Syria. Look at the rebel and look at the ruins that this war has caused. Now when you look at Scripture, it looks like we're well on our way to seeing Isaiah 17:1, where Damascus is left in a ruinous heap. Let's continue.
Assault hasn't happened. I think part of this is they're probably trying to assess what the American decision to send in some arms is going to do. They're probably trying to set up for some success here as well. But I don't think the battlefield has really changed. Interestingly, and there's been some writing on this, just the mere fact that the U.S. has said they're willing to send arms, that alone has sent...
Just the messaging.
Just the messaging itself has sent a different sort of signal in the region and has raised some hopes in the minds of some of the rebels. Now, we'll see...
Now, in case you don't understand, Barack Obama is saying that it's possible he's going to send arms to the rebels. Now, the rebels are Al-Qaeda. They are the people who the United States is fighting in Afghanistan and fought in, for example, in Iraq. But now you see the United States supporting the rebels, the Al-Qaeda, to go against Assad. And the rebels, the leader of the rebels, that is fighting Assad said that once we're done with getting rid of Bashar al-Assad, the president, that they're going to turn their attention on Israel. So you can see the handwriting on the wall for Psalm 83, without a doubt.
If that sort of comes to fruition, but it demonstrates, Bob, what you and I have talked about, which is just the signaling for the U.S. that we're in the fight in some way. Not boots on the ground, but are supporting Assad and trying to really topple Assad. That alone can open up new avenues of possibilities, whether it's from the Turkish side, the Jordanian side, from the Qataris, the Saudis, etc. What America says and does matters, and the fact that we're signaling that we're in the fight actually may start to affect.
Of course, the messaging only goes so far. It has to be followed by real concrete action.
Right, and I wouldn't expect that you're going to get too much out of that. Barack Obama is he's not very when it comes to putting out more troops. Obviously, he's pulling them out of Afghanistan. He wants to get out of war. So not only that, but the United States is going bankrupt. And to keep troops fighting and costing billions of dollars for arms and supporting troops, I doubt it very highly that the United States will engage, definitely not engage on the ground there in Syria. All right, now I'm going to turn my attention to what's going on in Egypt, because we know that Egypt is going to be playing one of those major roles in the last days prophecy. And the prophecy one of the prophecies that I'm talking about comes from Isaiah chapter 19, verses 1 through 4, where the Lord showed us in the last days the Egyptians against the Egyptians. We're seeing this happen in Syria. We're seeing it happen in Egypt again. We saw it when they threw out Mubarak, and now we're seeing it when they tossed out Mohammed Morsi, who is the Muslim Brotherhood leader. And of course, the scripture tells us that when this happens, the Egyptians are going to be given over to a cruel lord and a fierce king. So I'm giving you the latest news. Let me just show you what I wrote here. It says, I want to make sure that you get the latest news concerning what is happening in Egypt, because what we are told in Isaiah chapter 19 prophecy, and the way things look right now, I would say get ready for more bloodshed in Egypt, as there is no doubt in my mind that the Muslim Brotherhood isn't going to sit by and let Morsi stay out of office. And a headline today reads, Egypt unrest, liberal opposition rejects the transition plan. So let me go over to this article. And here we are at the BBC site. And you'll see it here. And there is a video here, so I'm going to click this.
It's as if a whole new city is springing up now around this mosque. There are places to eat here, places to sleep, but most of all, it's a place to protest. And people are staying here until they say their demands are met. Let's just talk to a few of the people who are gathering here. Well, this man has newspaper photographs of the killings that took place just down the street, and these are the kind of posters that are everywhere. Mohammed Morsi, who was ousted by the military in its action last week. So why are you here? Morsi. You want Morsi to be Morsi. And these are the pictures that are in the newspaper. How long are you going to stay here?
We will stay here. We will stay here until Morsi
brought back. So that may be a long time. Yes. What about you? How long are you going to stay here?
Until Morsi is to be the president again.
But what about a dialogue for an interim president, for an interim prime minister, and an interim arrangement and hold new elections? That's what's been announced.
We don't care about everything. We will stay here. Muslim Brotherhood Party stay here in Rabaa al-Adawiya, and Muslim Brotherhood Party will be back again as the president.
But the army has said you should evacuate the square because it could be destabilizing.
They are not for me. They are Muslim Brotherhood Party and all supporters of Morsi are ready to die here for Islam, for Morsi, for everything. All the Egyptian people are ready to die.
والاسلام عرفها ان الشعب المصري احنا عارفين مين اللي بيحاربنا من بره، عارفين الدول مين اللي معانا ومين اللي علينا.
This is, everyone wants to talk here. Everyone has a point to make, but the point is the same from everyone. They're not leaving until Mohammed Morsi is reinstated.
So this is what I've been talking about, that the Muslim Brotherhood is not going to sit by. They are there. They're going to stay there. And obviously, if you know anything about the Muslim Brotherhood, if you know anything about Al-Qaeda, they don't give up. And they'll, part of their belief is to die as martyrs. And they look towards this. So there's nothing good that's going to come of this. That's obvious. And there's going to be more bloodshed. Now, considering what the Lord told us in the prophecy, and we're seeing the very thing take place, it's just more signs that we're very, very close to the fruition of the prophecies that haven't been fulfilled yet. Now, a couple days ago, I talked about, I had this dream. Now, not too often will I put up some of my dreams because I need to find out whether they are actually from God or not. But when this dream took place, and I did write about it, and you can go back, scroll back, and just put Frank Demora and then Andy Marcy, this person's name, and you'll see what I told you. But I had a dream, and in that dream I saw this woman yelling Mansour, this person's last name, okay, and he is the interim leader. At the time, I didn't know who the heck this was. I never even heard of this name. But this woman was yelling this name over and over again in panic. So in my dream, I understood that this person was an evil person that this woman was afraid of. And so I just woke up. I couldn't even get back to sleep because it bothered me so much. I got up and I posted earlier that day. I started to put my post together at 4 a.m. in the morning. And one of the first articles that I pulled up, because I always look to the Middle East, of what's taken in the Middle East, and this person, his full name came up, and I found out that they put him as the interim leader. Now, the reason why I'm telling you this now is, as I said, many people have dreams. A lot of those dreams don't come from the Lord. It just may be something you were thinking about, but I wasn't thinking about anything of this person at all because I didn't even know who he was. I never even heard the name. So when I saw this name and it appeared in one of the first articles that I looked at, it kind of blew me away. And because of what I was dreaming and the next day seeing this very same name, I decided, well, I better post it just in case that this interim leader doesn't give up his post and he becomes this new leader or this fierce king. Now, I'm not saying that that's going to happen. I'm just saying let's watch and see if it does happen, because if it does happen, obviously what the Lord was showing me in a dream is something that he wanted other people to know. So again, not sure if it is or not, but we're going to find out as the days and the weeks pass by. But in any case, whether I had a dream that came from the Lord showing me what's going to happen in the future or not, Egypt is in unrest, exactly what the Lord showed us, and that prophecy is well on its way to being fulfilled. Now, who that cruel leader is, only time will tell. Now let's move to another prophecy in Luke 21:25. And we're going to be discussing, of course there's different signs here, but you'll see it says, and there will be signs in the sun and the moon and in the stars, and upon the earth distress of nations with perplexity, the seas and the waves roaring. And I'm going to be covering what's going on right now in Puerto Rico, because there's a new storm that is going to cause major problems again. So let's click this and listen to what he has to say.
Parts of Puerto Rico, Haiti, and the Dominican Republic are beginning to feel the impact of Chantal.
Flash flooding, mudslides, all major concerns, and Dominican officials are telling people in low-lying areas to evacuate.
We want to get right to the Weather Channel's Mike Bennis. He's in for Al this week. Mike, good morning to you.
Yeah, good morning. A lot of information to digest this morning. What we're looking at is a system that's weakening a little bit, and that could be good news. Having said that, we still have some tropical storm warnings right now for Dominican Republic and Haiti, and flash flooding is a monumental concern in these locations, especially when you consider the hilly terrain and how much rain could be forecasted here. Also, we track this as it goes up toward the Bahamas, and then it could get very, very close to the United States. Right now, 45-mile-per-hour winds. That's weaker than yesterday at this point, and it's gone past Puerto Rico, but we'll still look for heavy rain there today. Northwest movement, forward speed on this is right around 29 miles per hour, which is a very quick-moving storm, and for that reason, it hasn't gained a lot of strength in the short term at least. Here's the projected path on this storm, coming past Haiti, potentially hitting it this afternoon, then coming through Cuba, potentially weakening it a little bit more, but notice this, by Friday early morning, coming very, very close to the Bahamas, and then Keys. This could be a very, very interesting forecast as we go later into the weekend. Notice, right along the parallel coast of Florida, and then potentially making a landfall into Georgia. This is a part of the country that doesn't need any more rain. Epic flooding has already occurred so far this summer. Any more rain that's produced from this storm could cause some more, but heavy rain through the islands as we go over the next 3 days, and then through the weekend, a very big concern across the southeast United States. I'll have more of your forecast across the country today, straight ahead. Right.
All right, so there you have it, Puerto Rico, and obviously it looks like the United States is going to be hit with this storm as well. But that's not the only storm. I'm not too sure if you saw what was going on in China or not, but I want to bring this up because they have massive flooding in China, chaos ensuing. It almost looks like it's biblical in proportion. Now, there is a video here, but according to this news article that I quoted, it says, flooding in western China, the worst in 50 years. Remember in the beginning of this video, I talked about the problem with the food and the wheat, and I showed you one of the news articles. The woman said, we've never seen this before. This is becoming very, very common, that we're seeing these huge storms hitting a lot faster than we used to see. And again, this is all documented in my book. So the worst in 50 years for some areas, triggered by a landslide Wednesday that buried about 30 people, trapped hundreds in a highway tunnel, and destroyed a high-profile memorial, and devastating to a devastating 2008 quake. So let's go over to this article and watch this video that comes up. It almost looks like scenes that came out of that movie 2012. I mean, massive floodings, and they're obviously, if you were anywhere near this area, you'd be swept away. This is one of the lucky people who made his way to the out of the destruction that was coming, but caused by the water. Just incredible flooding. These are the signs that the Lord told us to look for, and they're all happening. Again, just a microcosm of all the different signs that the Lord said to keep an eye on. Now, some Christians are doing it, and what I mean doing it, they're watching the news, they're looking for the signs that the Lord told us, but the majority of them are not. They're just going about their lives thinking that everything is hunky-dory and not putting together all of the signs and not following the commands of the Lord. And if he said keep on the watch and you're not keeping on the watch, obviously you're not following his commands. And I encourage you to find out what the Lord says and start watching. This is what the Lord told us was going to happen. Now, again, I've been posting almost on a daily basis now, the sign that the Lord gave to us, and you'll see it in 3 different prophecies I put here. And one of them is Hosea, the other one is Ezekiel chapter 38, and also in Zephaniah. And it talks about the birds, the fish, and the animals that will be killed off. And I've given you as much information as I could possibly give, and as soon as it comes up, I report what's going on. And just let me show you, here's the article. When you get to my site, you can click on it, but just for the purpose of timing here, this was taken July 9th. This was not in my book that I posted yesterday, but I added this information. So this new information will be linked up and you'll have the latest edition. But it says hundreds of fish dying in canals due to contamination, bat and limi, and in Costa Rica. So more problems, more fish dying off, and there are many different reasons why fish are dying off. And there's another one that also came up, and this one in Spain. And these things, reports, are coming in from all over different parts of the world. And this one happens to be from Spain, where hundreds of dead fish found covering the beach there in Spain. And when you look at it, according to what they are told, and when you get to the link, you'll see that it's translated, so if you do not speak their language, you'll be able to pick it up in English. But again, as I mentioned in one of my past videos, there's a lot of cases where fish are dying because of the water temperature. And again, this goes back to the intensity of the sun, the heat pouring down, and it takes the oxygen out of the water, killing fish, and there's a lot of them that are perishing. Now, as far as Revelation chapter 13, this is where the Lord shows us that when the Antichrist comes, he's going to actually have control over everyone, at least make an attempt to have control over everybody. And the way he's going to do it is by forcing everybody to take a mark, as we see in Revelation chapter 13. And this mark, again, as you see here, will be in the right hand or in their foreheads. And unless you have this, Christ tells us that no man might buy or sell, say he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of the name, or his name, excuse me. And so there's a time coming where one man will be given the ability to control everybody around the world by this mark, whether it's either in the forehead or in the hand. And the technologies that are already here that will enable one man to do this. And at this point, it's just what technology the person would use when he shows up. But we do know, again, signs of the birth pangs. We see that these signs, the United States pushing a lot of the methods, if you will, of monitoring people, watching people, and so forth. And this is what I wanted to point out, because it's going to be, since we're in the birth pangs of it, and we know that the Antichrist is going to be the epitome of spying and tracking and monitoring people, I wanted to bring you what the McCluskey report said. And you can go to the link, which is down here, but it says, in an initiative aimed at rooting out future leakers and other security violators, President Barack Obama has ordered federal employees to report suspicious actions of their colleagues based on their behavioral profile techniques that are not significantly improved to work, according to experts in the government documents. So in short, what you're going to see from this article, and then of course this is the heart of the matter that I show you, and I'll read that for a second, but essentially what Barack Obama wants to happen is federal employees to spy on their friends who work at the companies, or one spying on another. It's not bad enough that Barack Obama is spying on Americans at will, wherever you are. Now he's got them spying on each other. says the White House, the Justice Department, and Peace Corps, and the Departments of Health and Human Services, Homeland Security, and Education refused to answer questions about the program's implementation. Instead, they issued virtually identical email statements directing the inquiries to the Office of the Director of the National Intelligence, declined to comment or didn't respond. So again, you have the government not answering to the people and questions about monitoring and spying, and it's just a product of this leadership there in the White House. Now, another thing that I wanted to point out, it says talk about spying, and this is my comments here, talk about spying, the government watching over you. Have you asked yourself why in the world is, of all places here, why is the IRS slated to control the health care in the U.S.? And of course, this is an article that shows you that there was a bill that's trying to prohibit the IRS enforcement of the Obamacare. And so, in short, what you have is Obama, the spy master, has an agency that deals with income taxes running and enforcing health care. It's just ludicrous. And I'll tell you what, if, by looking at what Barack Obama's doing, all you have to do is put a mustache right under his nose and have him lift his right arm, because he's really starting to look a lot like what Hitler was doing before he really got out of hand. So let me just bring down a little bit of this. As we've seen in recent announcements from the White House, the Obama administration is clearly unable to manage the implementation of its own health care law. And we've also learned that the IRS is clearly unable to prudently and impartially enforce current law. The Keep the IRS Off Your Health Care Act is essential to preventing further targeting, abuse, and harassment, as well as ensuring Americans have access to quality health care. It said, it is thanks to the American people who have voiced their support for our plan, and more than 100 members of Congress who have co-sponsored the H.R. 2009, that we have this opportunity to take action. And I urge more of our fellow citizens to get involved, so together we can continue to keep the pressure on Washington to keep the health care decisions in the hands of patients, families, and doctors instead of the government. And obviously, giving it to the IRS is, they have to be stopped. That is just crazy. It just shows you what kind of agenda Obama has. Now, there's more information when you're talking about Big Brother issues and, the privacy issue. The headline, Privacy Fears Grow as Obama Weighs Expanded Gun Buyer Database. And when you go to this article, you get some more information just showing you the information that this president is gathering about certain sections of people in the United States. And we saw collecting information about returning veterans. These are our heroes. And he's getting information in many of these reports calling them possible terrorists. You got to be kidding me. They were defending the Constitution and dying for this country. And yet Barack Obama is definitely doing things that are absurd and disturbing. Now, one of the things that I wanted to show you is Barack Obama is doing things that are actually destroying, declining the power of the United States of America. But this does play hand in hand with Bible prophecy, and let me connect the dots here. Now, when you go into prophecy, and when you read Daniel chapter 2 and Daniel chapter 7, you'll see that God gave the future of each world power all the way from the time that Daniel, the prophet, was alive during the reign of King Nebuchadnezzar. And in this vision, God showed Daniel every major world power from the time that when Daniel was alive under Nebuchadnezzar, who was in this figure was shown as the head here, all the way until the last part where Rome, the Roman Empire, would revive again in the last days. We saw that part of this figure here that God showed Daniel, the legs were the first Roman Empire. In the last days, they would rise up again, and 10 kings or kingdoms or leaders of these 10 nations are going to give all their power over to the Antichrist. And this is the last world empire. It's not the United States of America. And as a matter of fact, you'll see that the United States is declining. Now, yesterday I gave you some signs of the decline, and I want to show you some more signs that the United States is in decline, and actually this decline will give way, or to help give way to the revived Roman Empire, of which the Antichrist will soon come on the scene. Here are some of the signs. 11 states now have more people on welfare than they do employed. Look at the states here. California, New Mexico, it gives you all of them right there. It says last month the Senate Budget Committee reports that the fiscal year 2012 between food stamps, and I've given you all this information in my book, updating to the up as far as yesterday, housing support, child care, Medicaid, and other benefits, the average U.S. household below the poverty line received $168 a day in government support. What's the problem with that much support? Well, the median household income in America is just over $50,000, which averages out to $137.13 a day. And to put it another way, being on welfare now pays the equivalent of $30 an hour for a 40-hour week, while the average job pays $20 an hour. Now, it shows you, when you go down, you'll see the percentage of men and women who survived by cancer 5 years in diagnosis, and it gives you all the different statistics showing you the decline. Look at this. Check the latest statistics. I mean, it's just amazing how the United States is declining in most of the, or a large part now, the section of the United States is being supported by the government. This is not a sign that the economy is getting better or strengthening. It's a definite sign that we're going into the gutter, if you will. Now, another one of the prophecies that the Lord told us to look for had to do with persecution of Christians, and there's a lot of information in the news about this. Now, there is a video that I wanted to post for you, and very, very important video. I want to go to that video and let you listen to it, because it has, in part of this video, it shows you what the Christians in the United States are facing when it comes to how they're being treated compared to Muslims. What happens here? So let me go read over to this article and play the video.
I was born in Anderson, Alabama in the 50s and had to fight for my equality most of my life. You see, there were many who thought I should be treated like a second-class citizen, drink from a different water fountain, sit in the back of the bus, be counted as 3/4 of a person, go to a different school, and sit in the black section of restaurants. You know, separate but equal. Then came Dr. Martin Luther King, and all that started to change. And praise God it did. I became a Christian in 1969, and today I find myself being put in the same category as a second-class citizen again, and I am not going to make that same fight again. You see, I did not become a Christian to live the 50s and 60s all over a second time. You mock Glenn Beck, thus all of us, with your insult that the Tea Party is fighting for their equal rights. This brings me to the point of Al Sharpton, and that's his comments about our movement of taking back our civil rights as conservatives. Do you think we're going to go find a hole and hide somewhere? Mr. Sharpton, that is not going to happen anymore. So why is it that you think Judeo-Christian believers, the religious right, Tea Partiers, patriots, white people in general, who are starting to feel like second-class citizens and separate but equal, are being scrutinized by the IRS, spied on by the NSA, should not stand up and demand equal treatment under the law and the Constitution of these United States of America, the greatest nation ever founded under the banner of freedom. One nation under God gives its citizens certain inalienable rights and a promise that they have the right to pursue their happiness. I believe we're endowed with those rights, Mr. Sharpton. And deep down, I believe you believe it too. As a black man, Al, who went through the civil rights fight in the 60s just like you did, and saw the first freedom bus burn in my hometown of Anderson, Alabama on May 14, 1961. I think I have the right to tell you this, sir. I think the likes of you and Jesse Jackson have done more damage to the black race than any white man will ever accomplish. I have to tell you, Al, I have seen your work. It has been weighed, it has been measured, and it has been found wanting. That's Daniel 5, verse 27, my brother.
All right, so there you have it. Let me go back and there's other information. It's showing you what's going on with the Christians, the fight against Christians, and how the gay movement, the agenda. There's a lot other information that I have posted today. It gives you lots of information here. So please go to my website and you'll get the lowdown on what I've posted today. The judgment seat of Christ, no doubt, people are going to be judged for the things that are happening, the things that they do. And so before you get judged, before you think that this man who's sitting on the throne is not God and that you will not be judged, I'm praying that my site will make you at least think enough to check the Word, to check what the Lord says, because He wants your attention and He wants you in heaven. He doesn't want you to be swallowed up by the deceptiveness of Satan and the things that Satan is trying to do to people who haven't been saved. And so the biggest lie that Satan wants you to believe is there is no God. And believe me, that would be your worst mistake. This is Frank Demora from the last Chronicles of Planet Earth, my documentary on Bible prophecy and current events here at the End Times Research Ministry, saying, please consider what I've told you today. Christ loves you.